G'day and welcome to Inforunners. I am Execute, joined today by our good MinionSoldier and Astropub or Pel Shelley. We're going to be talking about the Endeavour today. Now, this is an episode that has come about from 3 or 4 other episodes we've talked about, so things like FMF, people always are wondering why we recommend this ship. We talked with MinionSoldier about the piracy things you can do with this ship, and there is just a hell of a lot of gameplay in this ship. And so we're going to go pull it all into one episode, and we're just going to go through the Endeavour and talk about, like, when this ship finally releases, which will probably be after Star Citizen's release, that you're probably never going to see a ship like this again, just due to the sheer amount of crap that is piled into this ship. And I don't even know where to start this episode, so I guess we could just go through all the gameplay components and then go into the little nitty-gritties. Is that where we should go?
Yeah. I mean, it's got a lot of gameplay, but
yeah, that's a lot of components.
So let's not even talk about the ship itself, just the modules for now. So we've got the farms. So let's look at the farms. You've got drugs, which is piracy. You've got like normal crops, food, special plants that you can grow in nebulas that they've talked about and stuff like that. I think another point I'll probably hit on that probably does talk about the ship itself is I am fully expecting this ship to grow, and those modules will probably be a lot bigger than what we're expecting. Because if you go back and look at the old concepts, what would you say? Maybe 50 plants maximum in one little quarter pod, so to speak.
I think Minion was saying earlier that he'd heard that when the ship came out, they were looking kind of bigger than a Bengal. Is that right? Is that what you'd heard?
No,
that was me. That was me. I was the one who said it was. I think it's not bigger than a Bengal, but it's growing to almost the size. Last time they mentioned anything about it, they said it is almost the size of a Bengal in terms of its size.
For $350 US.
Well, and people wonder why we keep recommending it.
Yeah.
Well, I think
there you go.
If it goes to the UK to get produced into the final ship, then it's going to get a lot bigger. I mean, we know how that goes. We've seen it happen with so many ships, but yeah, like the original concept images, the farms look kind of cute.
Yeah,
yeah.
But I think there's more than the cute aspect to it, though. I think like you, and I think that's the other thing that I'll get on is like what I'm trying to get on with even just the farm modules. A lot of the modules have multiple uses within the one module, and that's what's so scary. It's not just like it does 5 things. Each module does multiple things, and that's what makes it so damn scary.
And you were picking that up there when you were talking about, the drugs and the medicine and just the plants, and the plants grown in special things, and plants tolerant to different atmospheres that you can grow there, and all of those different aspects that lead to different game loops, and that's
and you can multiply it too, because you might have one farm module and then there's still 2 other modules you can combine with it, so you can mix and match how and what you want to do on your ship. I do want to go through the rest of the modules, so I'm just pulling off the ones off the top of my head, but if one of you boys can bring up a list, that would probably save me, because I can't do that because I'm recording. So
I'm in the process of doing that.
Yeah, so you've got the cargo module. So that kind of makes it like a mini. One of the things Dyson pointed on was if you can land on it, you can also use the extra resupply of the fuel, and you can also use the cargo to restock your ship. You could literally leave this as take the front cab off and just leave the trailer part behind. This is like a mini hangar that you could park in a nebula, land your pirate ship on, or drop your drugs off. You could literally use it as a drop-off point or resupply point. That's just hidden somewhere.
Like a private base. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's what do they call it? A safe house in the FBI. That type of thing. Yeah. Somewhere to fall back to when shit hits the fan. Or
a station.
Yeah, a midpoint station to refuel, or somewhere to go back to in the middle of a fight and get ammo from. Like, there's so many uses when you start to work this through gameplay wise. I can't rattle them all off, and that's just on those 2 components alone in the trailer.
And you've also got your I don't think you mentioned the cargo.
Yes,
but it's also got, you can also add an additional fuel pod.
Yeah, I did mention that. I did mention that.
Okay.
Yeah, so there's a refuel pod and the cargo. I did mention that, yeah. But that's just those 3 in the hangar. So those 3 together is one use. Yeah, Algrid, read off some of the other ones, please. I know there's a science one and a research one, and I always kind of
I've got to find it again because the page just.
I'll go through it real quickly. There's general research pod, which allows for different scientific pursuits, microscopy, zero gravity experiments, biological studies, and the like. And then there's also the general science pod, which is its analytic module with installation points for a variety of scientific computers and databases. It's oriented towards inward-facing processing and data gathered elsewhere. So, like the research pod is for external research gathering, and the internal and science pod is for the internal. So, for instance, the drug labs will probably use that science.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. But also, you've got the super collider, so that would be internal research. But then you've got the massive big radar dish, which would be external. So you can start to see how different modules will also combine together.
Those are completely different.
And modules. How big are they? Like it's so vague. Like what are you going to be able to do with those two modules alone? Like what can you grab from the outside? There is so much shit you can grab from the outside, and then it is.
Well, if you've got the super collider, you can have one of a module. Basically, you could have a super collider and something else because it takes up 2 of your slots.
Yes. But that's probably what you'd have. You'd probably have that research lab that fits with it. And then you've got the hospital as well, which is just, it's massive. And you can also see, like, and I know I keep chopping and changing what I'm saying here, but you could also see how a ship like the research, the Sen, how that would bring plants back to the research lab to be researched. So you can do, sorry, go ahead.
The DUR could do the same thing.
Yeah,
because you could park that in the landing bay. Like it's big enough to hold 2 Cutlass Reds, apparently, and that might change a little bit, but it's still big enough to at least hold 1 Cutlass Red, which means it can hold any freelancer. You know, it's ridiculous what this thing is capable of doing.
It's got service equipment and crew quarters as a pod.
Again, that comes back to that cargo bay thing, Algrid. You could instead of picking up cargo, you could be picking up troops to take back into battle. You could combine that with the hospital, and so you're also, like fully healing people and getting them back straight into the, they go from the hospital part to the crew quarter part, and back into service. There's I fully intend to see mini cities of these things where they're all like, you've got like 5 Endeavours and they're all doing the different modules and cross-pollinating each other, and the ships flying between the different cargo bays and stuff like that. I can see it's the beginning of like player space stations in space. It's kind of crazy.
Well, even from the beginning, I used to call the Endeavour a mobile space station just because it had so much. But I think if people bought the original pack, the big pack with the master kit, you actually have enough parts in there to do, I think it's 4.
Yeah, I can't remember. When you and I worked it out. 4? It was 3 or 4 different Endeavours. And,
it's easily 4, and you got leftovers.
Yeah, and I generally don't, when we do FMF, Algrid and I don't generally recommend people pick up the modules because they're so cheap, you can just earn them in game. And I'd still go with that right now. But we see a lot of people that have 1 master set, and it's like, well, you either need to get rid of this and just have the Endeavour, or you need to pick up a bunch more Endeavours to fill them out, because it's just
and part of the reason for that is just because the parts are so big, it's likely not going to be as easy as just hitting our Mobiglus and just swapping them over.
The shipyard stuff, where you got to go to the shipyard.
It's going to be more shipyard stuff, and so it's going to be easier to have 1 ship set up as your research lab, and 1 ship set up as your hospital, and 1 ship set up as and even if you have a Hope, a Discovery, and an Olympic made up from the items in your master set, you've still got things like the telescope and the super collider and the research lab or the general living quarters and the fuel pod and the cargo pod not even being used. It's just insane.
I think the thing to drill home there, Algrid, is like, say something like those research labs. It just says research, but we have no idea what that gameplay entails and how far that goes. Like you the one you can look at that's obvious is something like the farming, and you can see that there's 3 or 4 different gameplays just in that. But then you're like, well, it's research. How many different things am I going to be able to sample? That could be astronomical.
Yeah.
And what are the things that I can find and create and invent and discover and all that type of things. Like, so you might even find, and I'm just throwing this out here. This is made up, right? So you might actually find in an area that there could possibly be a wormhole, and that's where you then send your character possibly try and find it, because it can detect the gravitational fields, but it can't see it because it can't physically, like if it physically travels there, it can't see it. But because it's sitting way back, it can see them. So you're starting to see how this ship might be the starting point for a jump off for a lot of scientific pursuits, is what I'm trying to get at. And they did kind of mention that when they talked about that radar research.
And if you add those science stations, does that increase your computer capacity? Which means, does that give you more blades and things you can add to your ship and modify it? So again, you've got the huge possibilities and
well, it sounds a little bit like an Inforunner. So it's actually no, I'm serious. So you might even
bring the hacking potential could be of that ship.
That might be what the Star Runners and the Heralds are stealing. Like, they're trying to steal that data off an Endeavour. And are they processing that data there so it doesn't have to be transported to someone else to process? You know? So some of the data that Inforunners are going to be stealing will be from these ships. And you can all of a sudden, like, one of the things, you sit here and work through the way this ship connects with other ships, it probably connects with more ships in the game than any other ship. And I don't mean that lightly. Like, the other ship that I think of that was way up there might be something like the Kraken, where they're all coming back to it to get supported in that. This kind of does a bit of its job, but just not as big. But it does all these other jobs. It's nuts.
Yeah.
Minion, you're not talking too much, so I'm going to move into piracy a little bit. Can you? We need to talk more, right? Can you tell us some pirate things? Can you that you can see that this is obvious going to be tailored at?
Well, I think we touched on the combat potential, because, like, if you're, like, for those who remember when the ship first came out, this was back when the pocket carrier craze was at full magnitude, and everyone was like, when are we getting a pocket carrier? When are we getting a pocket carrier? And when this thing came out, people saw the launching base and they said, that's it. That's my pocket carrier. I'm buying that ship. For that reason alone, pirates were looking at it too, because of, like, a mobile base that you can carry and drop and hide somewhere in space. Is such a good idea. Now people say, oh yeah, but it's a big ship, it's easy to find. Well, think about how much space we have in the persistent universe right now, and you're going to find one ship this size in an area that vast. Okay, sure, that's an adorable statement, but when you look at all the other things that can come with it, I mean, we talked about farming, but, like, you see the images of those little farming pods. Imagine that thing, like, those two front farming pods are entirely planted with space reefer, and in the back you've got the lab for processing it.
Yep. And the cargo bay for the cutlasses to land in to ship it off to where you need to ship it. That was my setup.
Now you're in my territory as a smuggler. Like, that is my big bang buck right there. But yeah, no, sorry.
That's why I was just going to say that is my default layout for my Endeavour. The farm, the research lab to turn it into drugs, and the cargo bay to get it all out. They're the three modules I initially brought that I've now melted because I'm going to earn them in game. But they were the initial modules I brought. So yeah, you're right. Exactly the same as me.
Why grow your reefers? You just grow your farm goods and get your other stuff you need to make Widow. Why go to Jump Town? That too. Mobile Jump Town.
You'd be growing what is ever most profitable for you at the time, and that you can grow in space that you can't grow anywhere else. Like, so there might be this rare drug that is grown on some, Cephalus 3 or whatever, and it can only be grown on that planet because it's in this particular gravity and environment and this nebula. Well, you can go into your farm and you can replicate that, and you can be in another nebula that's on the other side that gives the same properties, and therefore you're replicating Cephalus 3 but on the other side of the universe, and all of a sudden those drugs are worth 10 times as much because they don't have to be transported. That's how you make your money. Supply and demand.
And you're hiding in a nebula, which is also hard to find people. So
there you go.
Again, it's just...
I just think, like, from a productivity, like from a criminal productivity point of view, one, you've got a mobile base, and, like, the front of that ship still comes off, presumably, in the future when they build it. It still comes off, so you can leave that out there. So,
You just thought of something else
in the universe,
and it's still heavily armored.
Yeah, and you can place it out there, and so all your guys operating in that system, they have a place to run back to in case shit gets real.
What's that about the cab being able to go into the coronas of suns or something, Agrid? I remember that as well. That's another thing that the ship can do. Like, it can go other places that the other ships can't.
Part of a research ability of the ship was the cab can separate and go off and research things. And one of the things that was always said, it was heavily armored, so it could go into those places which were inhospitable to other ships, like get closer to the sun to identify check the sunspots or do whatever, and then feed the information back to the computers. So if it can take that, you're looking at something that's
that from a survival perspective, that's what the ship will do. It'll dump and run to the sun, so you can't get to it. That'll be its survival mechanic. And I think we're kind of coming on to another part of it now, is probably the weakness of the ship. So let's talk about that a little bit. For me, this ship is going to be very reliant on cover and protection in two ways. A little bit like the Carrack, where it probably doesn't really want to be around other ships, so it'll probably move a lot, like almost like a Kraken. It'll not want to stay in one place for too long. It'll do what it needs to do and then move on, unless it's fully hidden in a nebula and really nobody knows it's there. Well, that's my 2 cents. I pass that on to you boys. Do you I don't think it's going to be as gunned. Paul, I'll go to you first.
I think its biggest weakness is the flip side of its strength. It's so diverse and can do so many different things, but you only have 3 modules. You only can choose 3 of the pods. Not all of them, only 3. So you can have all of them, but we don't know how long it's going to take to swap those modules out, those pods out. Whatever you're going to do, you're going to have an idea for it. It's very versatile, but also because it's likely going to grow, it says 3 to 5 crew members on that cargo thing. Just letting you know, it says it only has 3 to 5 crew members. There's no chance this thing's going to end up having only 3 to 5 crew members.
What do you reckon? 20? More like 20? Especially if you count, I will say
level, at least.
You know, the 3 or 4 crew members, I would say that is true if it's just the cab. But as soon as you add modules, I think every module will have its own crew requirement.
Well, I mean, just think about a Hope, which has the hospital module. You need doctors. You're going to need people actually operating. If you could hold 100 people in a Hope,
what was the number of beds?
The metal base.
Do you remember the hospital? Yeah, it was like 60 or something. It wasn't ridiculous. It was really crazy. If you're all level 3, it had a sheer number of beds.
I'm looking at the pictures of all the beds, but I mean, once again, these are old images. But it is, I mean, you could heal an entire company of soldiers in this thing.
Yeah. I actually think the 3 to 5 crew is really looking at just the base Endeavours.
Yeah, just the cab at the front.
So just the cab and the tail, without any components added.
Even that, I think that's still going to end up growing.
and that's still
it's because it's a bigger ship. And one of the things that's going to be its advantage, I think, is going to be that its advantage and its disadvantage. Its growth is going to be an advantage in that it's going to become more valuable, but it's also, I think, going to become a disadvantage because it's going to cost you more as well. So this ship is not something. This is a civilian capital ship. There is no way you're going to use this as a daily driver.
I think
this is something that you're going to have a purpose for.
I was just gonna. I was just going to add, this is probably Misk's capital ship, is what I was going to say.
And you look at the ship and you look at what it can do, and even the crew components or the crew complement of a ship is basically a captain, your pilot, your engineer, and probably 2 turrets. Is currently what they've got on it. So this ship it's not a bang ship. It's got less guns than a Kraken. It's got less guns than it's probably got less firepower than I don't know. I'll be use a bit of hyperbole and say it's a less guns than an Aurora. But I
think you've kind of knocked on there, Algrid, who this ship is for, essentially.
But I think it may not have a lot of power in and of itself, but I think it allows you to project power.
Yeah.
Like when I originally saw this ship and I saw that shot of it with the hangar, what I was looking at, and people are like, "Oh, it's a sign ship," and blah 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 blah. I was like, "No, I see a ship from like the original Star Wars trilogy, like a member of the Rebel Alliance fleet, repurposed civilian ship being used as a capital. Is this individually going to be something that goes toe to toe with the Javelin? No, but this is something you can use to project power, and I like that.
Yeah.
And it's
what you can put in the hangar, stuff you can put in the hangar, and
another crazy thing that I mentioned before when we were talking about this was it's a colony ship. You want to bring people to a world and take it over. You bring this and a Pioneer, you've got yourself cargo, personnel, you've got yourself hospital beds, or like the ability to transport people up and down from orbit. It is the closest thing you're going to get to a Star Citizen colony ship.
And to tie in with something else, you're really going to need to know the layout of this ship.
Yes.
Because running from a
that video out. Watch that video. Watch that video and figure out what you're talking about.
We recorded that earlier today for people that are watching after, because this will probably come out after that one. I don't know how far after that one, but it will. The other thing
go back and watch Know Your Ships.
The other Inside and Out was the name of the episode. Know Your Ships, Inside and Out. The thing I was going to add, though, is even things like the cargo bay module. Like, this ship was designed before the Hull series, so I'd almost expect that cargo module to be more in line with like a hull, but going sideways. You know, so like you said, I'm not saying you would use this ship as a cargo ship, but like that pirate analogy. You remember how they talked about the Caterpillar back in the day, about how it would be the mothership that you bring ship back to. This could be that ship hiding in a nebula that you're coming back to, landing on. You know, you're unloading the stuff out of, I'm just going to use Cutlass as an example, out of your Cutlass and into the cargo module, refueling, rearming, and out you go again. You know, and then you've got your crew module on there as well. So you're literally, it is an alternative to a Caterpillar. And because it's larger, it could essentially be that larger Caterpillar ship. There's just so many things and so many combos that we could sit here for an hour, and I don't think we could go through every combination. There is just so many. And that's what I try to want to get across to the viewers today, is that like, pick out of it what you want to see. Like, go look at those modules and pick out what you would see. And that's another reason why Minion is here. Like, he's got that pirate side, but that's just one side of like 10 others that you could use this for. Good guys, bad guys, whatever you want to right across the boards. There's too many. And it's again, tying back to the episode we recorded today, there's just so many things that you can't predict in the future that this ship is going to be able to do. And that's kind of my 2 cents on it.
I will also add one other. I will add one more disadvantage. It's not coming out until well after the game is launched.
Yes.
Yep. Yeah. Whenever you're buying this, buy this for your retirement fund.
Buy this for your children.
Yes.
Buy it for your
grandchildren.
Yeah. But at $350. At $350, I think it's a long-term investment, but I think you will eventually get your money's worth compared to some other ships.
Like, when you look at it, like, if you even look at the Discovery class, and correct me if I'm wrong in the comments below, and I have been wrong about ship prices in the past, but that thing was like $425 or $450 for the basic kind of science package version of it, correct?
I'd have to look
You compare that to, say, something like a Prowler. Which ship do you really think, for the same price, which ship do you really think you're going to get the more long-term value? Yeah.
It's this, oh God, you're right. This is ridiculous.
I know.
I think Brain's having
has made me sweat a little bit, but it's like,
I think Paul's having. I think Paul just had that moment. Yeah.
I just had that moment.
So in the previous video, Minion had that moment, and now Paul's just had that moment. Yeah, it's funny to watch. We had this moment years ago, but these guys are catching up. It's scary. Like when you have that moment, you're like, oh shit. That oh shit moment. We need to do an episode on oh shit. I think that's what we need to call it. Oh shit. What the fuck? But anyway, all right, anything else? Anyone else to add about the Endeavour before we wrap up?
It is really big.
Yes, it's definitely going to grow. You're looking at a capital class Bengalish size ship that does a lot. It's more of a support role, non-combat ship. But if you're into that stuff, man, like, and the versatility, it's going to combat assist though too. Minion, would you class it as a combat assist vehicle? A little bit like a Kraken. If it was in the right configuration, that's what I'm trying to say.
I want to see weapon layouts before I make a bold
What if it had no weapons?
like that.
What if it had no weapons? Combat.
I mean, if it had EWAR capability or something like that through its radar or something like that, that I think that could be a game changer on the battlefield.
It's got that really big radar dish thing it can put on it, so that probably would assist. So yeah, you probably got some really top.
Or just fleet awareness, like being able to be the shot caller and say, "Look out for these 3 guys coming from over here. Look out for that over there." I mean, it could give you like one of the greatest advantages on the battlefield, which is information.
We didn't even hit on command and control.
Yeah,
which is probably gonna be able to do, which is crazy. Yeah, there's just so much. Like every time we start talking, we just think of something else.
By the way, this is from the Matrix of Lies. So take this with a giant brick of salt. But it says that it has 5 size 5 turrets, and each turret is 2 times 1.
How many does the Kraken have? I think that's on par with the Kraken. Correct me if I'm wrong. But I think that is on par.
I think the Kraken has some slightly bigger ones, but yeah 5 size 5.
That's
kind of beefy.
Yeah.
And that's more turrets when it's got crew.
Yes.
Yeah. So I think that proves it. I think that
all 5 of the turrets.
Yeah, I think that proves our point in a nutshell. Yeah, it's definitely just designed for the people in the cab in my book. So I definitely expect that to grow. All right. Anything else you want to add, Algrid?
No,
Paul?
No, I think.
Thank you, Minion, for being here in voice. We'll get you on video one day, maybe. We'll see. All right. He's been Algrid. He's been Paul. I was about to say he's been Algrid as well. He's been MinionSoldier, and I've been Execute. We'll catch you boys in the next one. And ladies, if there is any out there. Bye-bye.